Yo, what's good with your Sorbo Hoops? And today we about to be talking about some hoops. As y'all can see in the title of today's video, I'm gonna be covering the top 5 rankings for the small forwards around the NBA. And mind you, like I said in my previous videos, this is going to be to current knowledge, so don't be surprised by some rankings. Let me just say that. If you're new to the channel, you know what to do, feel me? Subscribe to the channel. We get litty in this section. And if you ain't brand new, welcome back. Because I do want to say, when it comes to Kawhi and Chris Middleton, due to the low amount of games they've just played this season and already a young season, I didn't really even have them as true honorable mentions. But obviously, if they were healthy somewhat and playing a decent amount of games to go off of, they would probably even make the top 5, let's be real. But with that being said, let's get into the honorable mentions before we get into the official top 5 current small forwards in the NBA. All right, one of the highlight players that I had out of the honorable mentions was DeMar DeRozan. Now, I'm not going to lie, making this selection was really tough because next to him are a bunch of valuable 3-and-D wings that are all great on the defensive end and way better than DeRozan there. And the same could be said for the floor spacing that they provide each of their teams. But when it comes to versatility on the offensive end, I do give the edge for DeRozan because he is a better half-court scorer and one of the better isolation scorers in the league. Now, he could be a better off-the-ball player, as I do believe that there's moments where he is ball watching, or when he does have the ball, it does lead to a semi-stagnant offense. Nowadays, it just feels like a good possession for Chicago on the offensive end is DeRozan settling for a contested mid-range shot or trying to create some more rim pressure to draw some fouls to get to the free throw line. Especially, you could say the same when it comes to Levine. But I do believe that DeRozan has become a lot more precise in his decision-making within the pick and roll, and has made strides as a playmaker since his days in San Antonio. One of the best mid-range scorers we've probably seen in the history of basketball, despite his playoff ghost performances and shit like that. But it is what it is. Honorable mentions is OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Andrew Wiggins, and DeMar DeRozan. And without further ado, let's get into this top 5. Coming in at the 5th spot, we got Brandon Ingram, and this was the player that I had such a tear between putting in 5th place over him or DeRozan, but I had to just make the better decision. And honestly, I just believe Ingram is the better player overall. And I believe he made that even more apparently clear after what he was able to do last season for the Pelicans when Zion was injured. Given the reins of the offense, he was able to display his improvement on the playmaking end, often being the initiator of their offense and the lead pick and roll ball handler. And once they made that trade for CJ McCollum, not only were they crucial in turning around New Orleans' season last year, but they were also largely responsible for making that offense respectable. But when Ingram was given the opportunity to be a #1 option in a playoff setting on the bigger stage, he stepped up to the plate and was a pivotal piece in why that Pelicans team was able to give a formidable run to the #1 seeded Phoenix Suns. I know it's a small sample size of this season, what he's been able to do, but he's been incredible as a shot creator and volume scorer for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's one of the better mid-range scorers in the league, despite his percentages being down from that area of the floor this year. When he does have the ball in his hands, it doesn't stick with him too much, as he doesn't waste too much time off the shot clock dribbling the air out of the ball, and he gets to his spot smoothly and effectively. He's even good at scoring without the ball in his hands, as he's playing off of 2 other 20-point scorers in CJ and Zion, and he's shooting 46% on catch and shoot threes this season, and an outstanding 46% on pull-up jump shots this year. He's been better as the lead ball handler in pick and roll situations and just a lot more decisive in those possessions. Currently serving more as a secondary playmaker within their offense. And most of the passes that he gets off to his teammates lead to high-value shots. Defensively, he's a neutral defender. I'm not saying he's one of the ball stoppers in the NBA, but he's pretty solid as an on-the-ball defender, using his length to get a pretty solid contest on perimeter shots, and also getting a block for you here and there on certain contests. Given his wiry frame and the fact that he's 190 pounds, he isn't the best matchup against bigs or any wing players that have significant muscle to them. But again, bro's like 6'9" with a 7'3" wingspan, so he can use his size to his advantage in certain situations or to contest shots better than others. But again, it's not your ideal matchup, but it's also not your liability or your negative, you feel me? In all, I feel like he's the perfect Robin to the Batman of Zion Williamson, and they're gonna be a scary duo in core for the rest of the league for years to come. While the man is only currently 26 years old and arguably not even in his prime yet, he's good enough right now for him to get a 5th spot on this list. And then at number 4, we got Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. And when it comes to a player like Jimmy Butler, it's always hard to accurately depict where he should actually rank in lists like this, because he's one of those confusing players that can be a all-star level player during the regular season, but easily elevate his game to a superstar level and potentially even top 5 to 10 player in the NBA level once postseason time comes around. And ever since his finals run in 2020, he's not only made a significant stride in his playmaking abilities, but he's also just been a lot more intentional with his decision making on the offensive and defensive end. When it comes to his offense, I feel like he's grown a lot as being a better lead ball handler in pick and roll situations, being able to make split-second decisions to either hit the roller or to have some crafty finish around the basket that either gets him fouls or getting a bucket. He's also a decently active off-the-ball player, as he's very aware of what spots to be in on the floor to get some good cuts to the basket, and he's also a very solid connector within Miami's offense, being the primary or secondary playmaker within most of their lineups. On the defensive end, most of us know that Jimmy was drafted for his defensive reputation to begin with, but he has still continued to be one of the better two-way players around the league, and he's one of the better perimeter defenders specifically in the NBA. Very attentive playing passing lanes and sharpen rotations to get steals, as the man is 8th in that category around the league, and despite Miami's struggles this season, yet again, they are a top 10 defense. Beforehand, we know that he struggled with the three-point shot since joining the Miami Heat, and he's just found other ways to be effective as a scorer, whether it's playing within the pick and roll and getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line. And he is a bit overrated as a mid-range or two-point scorer because his efficiency percentages from there isn't the greatest outside of what he scores in the restricted area. This season, he's being more efficient from the perimeter, as he's shooting about 45% on mid-range attempts on a decent volume compared to the other seasons. And on top of that, he's shooting an honest 36% from 3 this season, which is amazing. Now, Miami, they're not living up to the greatest expectations, especially coming from a team that just had made a conference finals run last season and is a roster that is often brought up in the conversation of being a dark horse contender or a tough out in the playoffs at the very least, mainly due to how transcendent Jimmy Butler becomes in the NBA postseason. So even though Miami might be only a 10 spot in the East, Jimmy Butler at least got himself a 4 spot in this top 5 ranking. So yeah, remember early on in the video when I was kind of hinting at the fact that we're going to use some recency bias to play a factor in some of the rankings for this list? So yeah, this is kind of what I was alluding to, I'm not gonna lie. But yes, bro, I have him as a 3rd spot on this list. And for the reasons why it's gonna sound like I'm hating a little bit, but I'm really just keeping it a band with y'all. It's no secret now at this point in the season that the man has been just a bit less of what he was in his former days. And it doesn't mean that he's not a great player or he still isn't a top 10 to 15 player in the NBA, but it's just unrealistic to expect the man to perform at a top 5 level every single game of the regular season, especially when the Lakers, despite their current struggles and how their roster is constructed, is still having championship desires and aspirations. Especially when the main goal of any organization that has a LeBron on their roster would be for him to be as close to peak health as possible so he can be the best version of himself come postseason time. Now, I'm not going to lie, one thing that I have to say that has bumped LeBron down this season as opposed to other seasons, and again, it's understandable because the man is almost 38 years old and going into his 20th season, but it does seem like on a possession-to-possession basis in most games, he just has more of a lackadaisical nature to him. On the defensive end, he definitely seems a step slower in his lateral quickness, as a lot of the up-and-coming offensive threats in the league seem to have no issue blowing right past LeBron when it comes to taking him off the dribble. Even though he isn't a complete traffic cone on that side of the ball consistently at this point in his career, he definitely doesn't go out his way to contest shots as frequently anymore, whether it be on the interior or on the perimeter. And on possessions where he's being attacked one-on-one, often relies on the help defense of his teammates to recover for his mistakes. Off the ball, though you'll see him setting some screens from time to time, you'll most likely catch him really just chilling during the possession, catching his breath. And then when he does have the ball in his hands, it does seem like he is a step slower at taking his defender off the dribble. And just in general, like, he settles for jump shots a lot, where he's shooting 37% on jump shots this season, which isn't terrible given his career percentages. But when you look at the volume that he's starting to sort to, and when you look at his efficiency from like off the dribble shots, it gets pretty questionable. He's creating the least amount of rim pressure in his career, and it isn't because the man isn't still as athletic, but at the same time, again, it goes to that preservation for his body, as the man is already asked to do a lot on the offensive end for a player that's going into his 20th year. So understandably isn't always trying to draw the most contact when he's attacking the basket. I'm not gonna lie, it's no disrespect to LeBron, but it just really be looking like he be having possessions where he's lost both on offense and defense. And especially for a man who's built such a reputation for having such a photogenic memory where he knows teams' playbooks, he knows his own team's playbooks, and almost everything he would do on a possession-to-possession basis, especially in his prime, was intentional, even if it didn't look like it in the moment. I'll admit it definitely is a bit weird to see LeBron showing signs of declining, but at the end of the day, Father Time is undefeated. Doesn't mean that he is not a great player who still doesn't make great reads, still is one of the best passers in the league, still is great at getting some backdoor cuts, being a lob target in transition, finishing in the restricted area. Don't get it messed up. It's still King James we're talking about. LeBron is still a great player in the league, and for him to still be able to compete with dudes who weren't even born when he was drafted, and for him to be moving as fluently as he does with the young cats in year 20, like, damn, nigga, you got it, man. You got it. It only reminds me of how much we'll miss this man's greatness when he finally decides to retire. But as for his performance on a night-to-night basis and where the Lakers have just finished in the standings over the past 2 seasons, I can't sit up here and say that he's better than the other 2 guys I have ranked above him, or that he's still one of the best players in the league if I'm being consistent to the standards in which sports fans hold a superstar to. Combine all of that with the fact that the Lakers have missed the playoffs last year, had to make the playoffs through the play-in the season prior, and this season have the potential of not making it at all, with the fact that LeBron has been a negative on the defensive end, alongside the fact that the man is arguably the best player on his team, or if you want to say he's the second best and you're giving that crown to AD now, regardless of that, I have to remain fair and give him a 3rd spot on this list. And at the 2nd spot, we have Kevin Durant, who is one of the more efficient scorers we have in the league today. Not to mention that the same can be said for his mid-range scoring, as he's one of the better perimeter shooters around the league and arguably one of the better mid-range scorers of all time. Bro is really more efficient shooting jump shots over a defense in tight coverage than he is at shooting wide open jump shots. Like, obviously his height gives him an advantage in certain matchups, but at the same time it doesn't make it any less impressive. KD has not only continued to improve that he's one of the best shot creators the league has ever seen, but he seems to have more of a heightened IQ in his playmaking ability, as he's gotten better at making simple reads coming out of a pick and roll, being the ball handler, or just taking advantage of fast break opportunities and making the right play. Not to mention that he's overall just gotten better at the skill of being able to leverage his gravity on the offensive end and create easier shot opportunities for his teammate. Even when he's dealt with injury issues to Ben Simmons and that whole drama situation with Kyrie, he proved that he's made significant strides as a primary playmaker. And I'm not putting him in classes like CP3, Luka Doncic, and LeBron's of the world, but he has definitely shown that he's been an improved passer. Brooklyn is starting to pick it up this season, as they are starting to pick up some wins in the win column since Kyrie's been back and they've been getting an easier schedule. They're a top 10 offense that has recently been on a 4-game winning streak, and not to mention that they've been 8-2 in their last 10 games. KD is currently top 5 in player impact metrics, and his offensive consistency on a night-to-night basis has been a large part of Brooklyn's success. But it is still questionable about how deep they can make a playoff push, because they did get their asses swept last year, and KD was getting his ass locked up by Boston in a few games in that series, or 80% of that series, if we're being real. So, I mean, there is questions in terms of, like, his hierarchy in terms of the best players in the league overall. But when it comes to his position, man, I definitely got to say he's second up there. Also got to add that he's been a little bit more of a consistent defender this year, being more of a positive on that side of the ball for the Brooklyn Nets this season, despite the team overall being a mid-tier defensive team. More of a consistent communicator with his teammates on that side of the ball. And although KD is definitely one of those stars who takes breaks on the defensive end from time to time, this season he definitely seems like he's applying more effort in using his lengths to contest shots at the rim. And especially due to the lack of rim protection on the Brooklyn Nets roster, he's been doing that pretty effectively, as he's averaging nearly 2 blocks on the season. And at the number 1 spot, yes, I do have Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum has not only proven that he is the best at his position, but has slowly became one of the best players in the league. Not only did he put on display in the previous postseason that he can match up with the league's best stars, but he's also grown in parts of his offensive game, such as playing off the ball, his ball handling, and though he averaged a decent amount of turnovers in that play, decent is even an understatement. He averaged a lot of turnovers during that playoff stretch. He definitely showed improvement as a playmaker within the Boston Celtics offense. Not to mention that they were a top 5 defense last year. And though they are middle of the pack this season, he has definitely individually shown that he has also made improvements on that side of the ball as well. As it wouldn't surprise me if this dude ended up making an all-defensive team this season, for one. And secondly, I'm a firm believer that Boston's defense will at least crack the top 10 once Robert Williams is back and healthy for this roster. I know to some this might be too soon of a title to give to Tatum, especially with the company that he's in at his position. But let's be real, the dude just gave 44 to LeBron the other day. And just in case you think that was just a good game or a lucky occurrence, I would heavily recommend that you look up the box score numbers for Tatum when he's matched up against LeBron in the regular season, dating back to as far as 2020. While I can agree that LeBron is levels ahead of Tatum as a passer, I do believe that at this point in his career, Tatum is better both as an offensive and defensive player than LeBron is currently. On the defensive end, if you watched even a couple of NBA games from either team, I don't really have to explain much about how Tatum is better than him there, as he's just proven to already be one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. But on the offensive end, he's a better ball handler, he's a better perimeter shooter, he's more efficient as playing off the ball, he's a better isolation scorer, and he is currently the helm of an historically great offensive team right now. When it comes to his placing over Durant, I do feel like a greater argument can be made from the opposing point of view, but I just feel that Tatum's improvements on the defensive end is enough of a reason to label him as the better overall player, and closes the small gap in whatever KD has over him on offense due to his higher scoring efficiency. And even when we're talking about the realms of offense, it's not like he's that much of a step behind than Kevin Durant, as he is 4th in the entire NBA in points per game, 4th in individual offensive rating, and currently top 10 in the NBA in terms of PER. Another adjustment that Tatum has added to his game this season has been lowering his frequency on mid-range jump shots, as a constant criticism of his game in the past was his lack of aggression getting to the free throw line and attacking the basket more consistently, and would often become overly reliant on bad mid-range jump shots. But this season, he's attacked those criticisms head on, as he is shooting a career-high free throw attempts per game this season, and he has really prioritized his scoring options at finishing around the basket or shooting a respectable 36% from 3 on 9 attempts per game. But with that being said, that is my opinion. You guys could correct me down below or let me know if I'm missing anybody on the honorable mentions or off of the official list. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'm out of breath, bro. Y'all be easy.